What's up, guys? It's your boy Kittens coming back to you guys with my Amareth, the Lustrous deck, the artifact deck that I said I wanted to make into a CDH deck. And I just kind of realized that taking a step back, that Giora, the Weatherlight, kind of is just a faster version of the deck. Sure, Amareth has access to white and green and everything, but honestly, I feel like Giora is just slightly faster. All the 1 mana, 2 mana rocks affect Giora a little bit more. You get a Soul Ring. You're going to play Giora on turn 2. Amareth, Soul Ring, you're going to play her on like turn 4. So, in that, you could have like Soul Ring plus Mox Opal, and you're like, play Giora on turn 2, and then play the Mox Opal to then draw a card. In your turn 2 doing that. You could have hands where you're playing Jeweled Lotus, and what I'm thinking is that, in Giora, the mana rocks kind of matter more. In this deck, you're doing a bunch of mana rocks, for, ramp and everything. Even in kind of the slower version that I have, just a bunch of 1 and 2 mana rocks and some cost reducers and stuff. And just frankly, those mana rocks, even though this deck is 3 colors, and you can use a bunch of the talismans that I haven't put in the deck yet at 2 CMC, those talismans are just better in Giora. There's only, I think, 1 you can play, right? And, but the 2 mana rocks are just better. You play it on turn 2, and then turn 3, you play the Giora, and then any of your, 0 mana cards you can then play out on that turn 3 to start drawing cards. And, a hand like, just to kind of give you better examples, a hand of Giora that's like, 3 lands, a 2 mana ramper, and then a bunch of 0-drop artifacts. Just like an Oreo style deck, you can play Giora on turn 3 and then draw a bunch of 2-3 cards depending on how many of those artifacts you have. So for me as a person, I feel like the only thing that I want to do with this deck is add 1 more win condition. For this deck, we use Aetherflux Reservoir and Blightsteel Colossus as win conditions. And what I'm going to do for the deck is to make it all permanents and add a Primal Surge. So here's a whole handful of the cards that aren't permanents, and just just take these out. Mind's Desire is kind of like a mini Primal Surge, so you have to storm into it, but you can kind of get a similar effect to it. But the whole idea would be to Primal Surge, go through the library to get Aetherflux Reservoir, and then Primal Surge is a May, so you just put the reservoir in, and then you stop doing the repeated triggers for it, and you get a bunch of draws from Amareth. And then, from there, you just win with the Aetherflux Reservoir. So if I want to go over kind of everything really quickly, there's already a deck profile of this deck on here. But yeah, it's just some sweet stuff. Phyrexian Revoker to, stop some commanders and activated abilities. Microsynth Golem's really sweet, 11 CMC. It has affinity for artifacts. Gives your artifact creatures affinity for artifacts. Metalwork Colossus is a sweet one. Some of the free artifacts like Companion and Artifice, or Mirror Enforcer, Memnite, Ornithopter. There's some interesting ones that double trigger the commander, and that's kind of the only advantage that this commander has over something like Giora Weatherlight Captain, is that there's a handful of cards that'll double trigger for just 2 different ETBs. You can use things like Smothering Tithe, where you can have the treasures come in, the treasures then trigger again, and also your lands. Your lands can get you draws off the top of your library if the top of your library is a land. So those land cards won't be dead. So there's things like Gilded Pinions, another piece of ramp, Cogwarts Puzzle Knot, Batterbone's a funny one. I've won games with Batterbone by giving my Blightsteel Colossus Vigilance and Lifelink, so I'm gaining like 22 life a turn if your opponent's still trying to attack, and then you have the potential to give your opponent the infect stuff. And Wave Sister is a cool one because you can evoke him for 2, and then you get 3 triggers. So for 2 mana, you have a creature come in, and then you also have 2 the Investigate tokens. So the Clue tokens come in for 2 more artifacts off the top. So for me as a person, I guess just go through all the kind of the fun other stuff. This is kind of artifacts that aren't ramp. That's just like kind of stuff to play to draw. Spider Silk Net, a Sphere, a Jack-o'-lantern, Sensei's Dividing Top, and Mystic Forge. And I guess there is a way you go Mystic Forge with Sensei's Dividing Top and a cost reducer to go infinite, I guess. So you have cost reducer, Forge, top, and then with Aetherflux out. So you just play the top over and over and over off the top, and win like that. And let's go through the ramp really quick. Just a bunch of generic stuff. Cage Sun is kind of a random one. I think it's interesting because it's a 3-color deck, but there's a lot of situations with the basics that we use. We have 4 or 5 basics, or just lands that have the land produced for the color, because it's just whenever a land ability produces the color. You don't actually need basics for it, just any land that can produce said color. And there's a couple of situations where we go from 6 mana to like 12 mana on our 7th turn, and that's really nice. Rites of Flourishing is a really nice one. Moon Snare Prototype is a great one because it's just 1 CMC, it gets you the mana back right away. So it's just like a mini free artifact if you can tap something on your board. Felwar Stone, Gold Vein Pick is an interesting one because you attach it to a creature, and then it gives you treasures when the creature does damage, so it gives you more ETBs for artifacts to trigger Amareth more. Blink Moth Urn is a really individually powerful one, 5 CMC, but it gives you so much mana where there's another situation where you play this on like turn 5 or 6 or something, and then you have 10, 11 mana on the next turn, and it's just super nice. Soul Talisman is a great one. It's a mini soul ring. Just suspend 3 for 1. Just gives you that soul ring. Just super nice. Jeweled Amulet is a nice 0. A nice Oreo card that gives you mana. You just tap into it to save the color, and then you lose the mana afterwards. But yeah, so this is my Amareth deck. I have made it kind of awkwardly strong, but not CDH. And again, me wanting to do it CDH, there's just so many cards that are just better in Giora. Things like a Hurkyl's Recall, where in this deck, the Hurkyl's Recall will get stuck on the top of the library, and you have to like find a way to draw it or something. Through you have to like play like a Prismatic Prism, or like sacrifice a star or something like that, or Jack-o'-lantern to then draw into it. Whereas in a Giora deck, you just play artifacts, draw the Hurkyl's Recall, activate it, get a bunch of artifacts, and then go from there. You can use like Consuming Tide, where you keep the Giora on board, bounce everything on board, including your artifacts, and then replay everything. So there's just so many different lines of play that are particularly powerful in a Giora deck that I can't really play in an Amareth deck. And from playing Amareth, what I would honestly recommend for people is to just try a more lock piece centric deck, because this deck has access to a lot of things. Like you could do a Stasis plus Smothering Tithe, where opponents can only untap with 1 land, and then you're getting treasures when opponents are drawing, so you're still able to activate stuff. I'd do things like Collector Oof or Curse Totem to make it so players can't get activated abilities. Just using Amareth as a late game way to draw cards after you've run out of things. I feel like that's the best way to run this deck as a competitive deck. So for me, it's just a fun deck that's super good and is just mildly strong. And I'm going to be adding that Primal Surge into the deck to have 1 more win condition. So it's been your boy Kittens coming to you guys with this deck profile. It's been a good one. Peace.